Deep in the heart of the West African jungle lay a village shrouded in mystery, known to outsiders only as Efunsetan, the Silent Village. To approach it was to step into an eerie stillness that seemed to press against your chest like a heavy fog. There was no laughter, no cries of children, no hum of daily chatter, just an oppressive, unnatural silence. It was said that those who spoke aloud within the boundaries of the village would vanish, only to reappear in Ajiranru, the mythical place of terror. For centuries, the villagers of Efunsetan had communicated through intricate hand gestures, subtle expressions, and the rhythmic beats of talking drums. Even babies, it was whispered, were born with the instinct to remain silent. Outsiders rarely ventured into Efunsetan, and those who did often didn't return. One moonless night, Kola, a trader from a neighboring town, wandered into the outskirts of Efunsetan. Unaware of the village's curse, he was drawn by the rhythmic flicker of oil lamps and the sight of well-tended farms. After a long, arduous journey, he thought he had found a place to rest. As he entered the village, he noticed the people moving gracefully, their expressions calm but distant. They looked at him but said nothing, their lips pressed tightly together. When Kola greeted a woman carrying a basket of yams, she froze, her eyes wide with panic. She dropped the basket and fled into the shadows. What strange customs! Kola muttered to himself, shaking his head. Unfazed, he set up his wares by the central square, hoping to attract customers. Yet, as the minutes stretched into hours, no one approached him. Frustrated, he called out, "Come. Find." The moment the words left his lips, the air seemed to shift. The gentle breeze that had rustled through the palm fronds died, replaced by an oppressive stillness. A low, guttural hum resonated from the earth, growing louder with each passing second. Before Kola could react, the villagers scattered like frightened birds, leaving him alone in the square. Suddenly, shadows surged from the surrounding huts, converging toward him. He tried to run, but the ground beneath his feet softened, pulling him downward like quicksand. His screams echoed into the night as he was swallowed whole. When Kola regained consciousness, he was no longer in Efunsetan. He was in Ajiranru, a land of eternal darkness and despair. The sky was an endless void, and the ground was cold and damp, littered with bones. Around him, shadowy figures writhed in agony, their moans muted as if stifled by some unseen force. Fear clawed at Kola's chest as he stumbled through the desolate landscape. He saw others, men, women, and children, wandering aimlessly, their faces pale and gaunt. They tried to speak, but their mouths moved soundlessly, as though the very act of speech had been stolen from them. A creature emerged from the shadows, its form shifting and amorphous. Its eyes glowed a sickly yellow, and its presence radiated malice. It spoke without words, its voice a piercing echo that seemed to reverberate inside Kola's skull. "You have broken the sacred law. Here, you will remain, silent and forgotten." Kola fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face. He tried to plead for mercy, but no sound came. The creature laughed, a hollow, bone-chilling sound, and melted back into the dark. Back in Efunsetan, the elders gathered in the council hut, their faces grim. Through a series of gestures, they recounted the tale of the village's curse to the younger generation. Centuries ago, Efunsetan had been a bustling, joyous place. But the people's voices had drawn the attention of Ajiranru's guardian spirit, a jealous entity named Efunsetan. The spirit had demanded that the villagers sacrifice their voices in exchange for safety. When the villagers refused, it unleashed a plague of horrors, dragging anyone who spoke into its realm. Desperate to survive, the elders had struck a bargain: the village would remain silent forever. But the curse came with a caveat: if any outsider broke the silence, the balance would be disrupted, and the wrath of Efunsetan would return. Now, with Kola's transgression, the villagers feared the worst. Among the villagers was a young girl named Arinola, who had been born after the curse. Though she had never heard a voice, she longed to speak. Her dreams were filled with visions of a time when the village thrived with laughter and song. As the elders deliberated, Arinola watched from the shadows, her heart heavy with guilt. She had seen Kola earlier that day and had failed to warn him of the taboo. Determined to make amends, she devised a daring plan. She would enter Ajiranru and bring him back. Arinola approached the village's diviner, an old man named Baba Aid, who had lived through the curse. She communicated her intent through gestures, but his face darkened, and he shook his head vehemently. Yet, seeing her resolve, he relented and gave her a small, glowing talisman. "This will protect you from Ekunal Ayanmo's grasp," he wrote on a slate. "But remember, once you speak, you can never." Clutching the talisman, Arinola ventured into the forest under the cover of darkness. She reached the sacred grove where the veil between worlds was thinnest. Chanting silently, she pressed the talisman against a gnarled tree, and the ground beneath her feet opened, pulling her into Ajiranru. The realm was as terrifying as the legends described, but Arinola pressed on. She found Kola huddled beneath a jagged rock, his eyes hollow with despair. When he saw her, he shook his head, gesturing for her to leave. But Arinola would not be deterred. She held up the talisman, its glow illuminating the darkness, and guided Kola through the treacherous landscape. As they neared the portal, the ground trembled, and Ekunal Ayanmo appeared, its form towering and menacing. It reached for them with tendrils of shadow, its voice a deafening roar. "You dare defy me?" Arinola took a deep breath and did the unthinkable. She spoke. "We are not yours to keep," she said, her voice steady and defiant. "Release us." The sound of her words shattered the oppressive silence of Ajiranru. The talisman flared with blinding light, and the creature let out a scream of rage as it dissolved into nothingness. When Arinola and Kola emerged in Efunsetan, they were transformed. Looking well-dressed, the villagers stared in awe. The moment Arinola spoke again, the curse broke, and a wave of sound swept through the village. The birds sang, children cried, and the villagers wept with joy as they rediscovered their voices. Arinola, however, knew she could never remain. Her defiance had marked her as an exile. With tears in her eyes, she bid her people farewell and disappeared into the forest. Efunsetan thrived once more, its silence replaced by the vibrant sounds of life. But they never forgot Arinola, the brave girl who had broken the chains of fear and restored their freedom.